Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Electric Bison. We're standing on the curb of Cruz Avenue in Helena, Montana. Cruz was named after Thomas Cruz, the illiterate Irishman that found gold in the Drumlumban mine up in Marysville, just northwest of here. With that gold, they used it to build Montana's Capitol building and our beautiful Cathedral of St. Helena's. Across the street behind me is 15 tents, as I make them out, of people who are otherwise unsheltered, living on the streets here in Helena. And behind them is a red building called God's Love Shelter, which for years has been a place for people to come to that don't have a place to stay overnight. The people out behind are the ones that, if the situation gets really bad, it's only 30 degrees, it's only 2 degrees below freezing right now. They might be able to sleep on the floor in the shelter, back to front. But our town is actively trying to find a place for people to go to during really serious weather, which unfortunately the unsheltered people back east and in the Midwest are getting hammered with right now. It's 7:54 in the morning, it's sunrise. Clouds should start turning color here in a minute. Town's waking up, getting ready to go to work. This is the 30th of January. It's the day the people in Minneapolis asked to have a strike in their state. And I know that merchants here along the Last Chance Gulch, a block below us, some of them will be closing their doors and handing out postcards to people who are normally patronizing their stores, suggesting if they want to write our congressman. Our congressional delegation has been pretty much absent without leave. They know what that means. They all claim to be military people, and one of them claims to be the nephew of a Marine, which I find it hard to believe. But anyhow, they haven't done anything good yet for Montana. And we really need their help, but they're just not doing the job. So that's another page that's going to have to turn in Montana's history down the road, if we get to have an election. And from the looks of it, from the way President Trump has got his Director of National Intelligence, who's in charge of 18 intelligence agencies. She's down in Fulton County looking over, trying to find evidence that Trump was right, that his election was stolen last year. Remember, that's the one where he called the election supervisor and asked him to find 11,000 votes? Yeah, that one. So we got a real nutcase in the House, in the presidency's office. But he's our president. 77 million people voted for him, and we're going to have some serious challenges, I think. But we're Americans, and we can do this. So I'm not going to go down and film anybody handing out postcards. I see from the national newspapers yesterday and today that all the tools of the modern surveillance state are now in the hands of ICE. They probably have my picture. I came through transportation security twice. I'm the guy with Gulf of Mexico hat on, in case you need to want to look fast. So they have that. They're putting dossiers together, not just on people that they claim are murderers and rapists and so forth, but on people that are protecting their own civil rights, which would include me. So that's the state of affairs that we have right now. But I think that if we just be ourselves, we're gonna win the country back. We really are. I really believe that. This morning, David Brooks, who's been a long-time conservative columnist at the New York Times, wrote his last column, and he calls it the same way I feel about it, and that is that the people that voted for Trump have lost hope. You know, they've lost faith. They've lost faith in each other and the love that goes with it. So not all of us are that way. I haven't lost hope. It's true that the things that we'll want to see done to make our country as good as it has been, as good as it can be, may not be done in our lifetime. And that's what hope's about. But we have to have faith that other Americans, people like ourselves, are going to work together and are going to work with each other to bring this to a fruition over a long time. Maybe not the election year, we'll see. Maybe not in my lifetime, but we can do this. So I don't want to take pictures of anybody if I can avoid that except for myself. But I want to tell you that last night, the night of the 29th, we had the point in time count of the unsheltered people. And I guess it went on around the country, and we won't find out the total numbers for a while. But I was part of that, and I interviewed two women. One woman has been unsheltered for 4 years. She's got no assistance whatsoever. And the other woman's been unsheltered for 17 years. And I want to talk to her about her for just a minute without telling you her name. Her mother she brought her mother into the point in time survey, and I talked to her mother. Her mother told me that she, the mother, was the great-granddaughter of Sitting Bull fame, right? And that her grandfather, the mother's grandfather, was killed. He was murdered by federal authorities at the original Wounded Knee massacre. He and all of his family, except for his wife. She said her grandmother was wounded in the neck by a bullet, but she survived. And they always just spoke Lakota when they were at home. They couldn't speak their language in other places, but the family insisted on that. And that was their way of resisting. I think that's pretty phenomenal. Another woman who was at the point in time count, she's the granddaughter of Little Bear. Little Bear was the chief of the band of the Chippewa Cree that lived around Helena after the Rael Rebellion in Helena. Big Bear, his father, had been killed by British soldiers. They were trying to resist British rule up there and form their own country made of mixed blood, Métis, French and Indian, Irish and Indian, and so forth. And they were not successful, but Rael was hung in the Second Rebellion. And her great-great-grandfather, Big Bear, was killed. So her family, her grandparents were with Little Bear, and they went with a guy named Beveridge from Helena, Captain Colonel Beveridge. He was going to have a Wild West show, just like Buffalo Bill Cody. And they went to five appearances around the country, and then he went Fournier. He went bankrupt. And so they were left stranded on the shores of the Ohio River in Kentucky. And so what Little Bear did with the 230 people he had with him, quite a responsibility, he went up to the Cincinnati Zoo and hired on as a special exposition. So they were the Indians in the zoo. But they did that. And of course, Americans went and they all loved seeing them. You could Google that and you'll see who they were in all their original regalia. And when they finally got $30,000 together, Little Bear said, "We're done here." Told some Lakota Indians about it so they could get on that deal. And then he brought them home to Montana. Well, his great-granddaughter is one of the people we counted last night. Again, and her husband was a Vietnam veteran. We counted him. And their family has a long history of fighting our country's wars as American veterans. So now let's go back to the lady who was Sitting Bull's granddaughter. Sitting Bull's great-granddaughter, who I interviewed, is in one of those tents across the street. And I've known her for 4.5 years, and I didn't know until I met her mother, her mother, that she was a relative of Sitting Bull, a granddaughter of some great-granddaughter of somebody who survived the original Wounded Knee massacre, but she is. Anyhow, I interviewed her, and I went through the, I think, 25 questions that I had to ask. They were structured, and they go into a common computer system somewhere in the world. But anyhow, I said to her, what's your nationality? Because you got to go Asian, black, Hispanic, white, whatever. She goes, I'm white. And I went, what? Well, she's Métis, right? She's part Irish. She's part Lakota. She's been homeless in Montana for 17 years since she left South Dakota. But she wants, and she insisted, I can't get over it. She insisted on being listed as Irish. Okay, we got that. Right here, across the street from me, is the old Indian Alliance, we call it here in Helena. Every year, about 50,000 Native American and Métis people pass through here. Louis Riel himself lived here in Helena. He got his citizenship as an American citizen here in Helena before he went up to Great Canada the second time and got himself hung. So there's lots of Métis through here, but this one, instead of saying that she's Lakota Sioux or Native American, she said, I'm Irish. And she insisted on it. And then I asked her, how are things going? I asked if she wanted to make any comments. It was really amazing. The woman is amazing. The first time I saw her, she was just a little person. I thought she was dying, of exposure. Another guy, a Chippewa Cree, brought her in his arms, and she was shaking so bad. She was shaking really bad, and had to get her back into the shower to warm her up. It was not a blizzard day, but it was a cold, rainy day, and it was nasty. And she had hypothermia, but she's seen it all. And so last night, when I asked her if she wanted to make any comments, I just get a kick out of this. She goes, oh, I just love it here. She says, I got all my friends here. I had asked a question about family, if there's any others. She says, I got all my friends here. She says, and you know what? They all love me, and they're all reliable. Said, this is a great place. I love it here. And she's in one of these tents over here, been around for 17 years. If anybody's got a complaint, it would be her. And she doesn't. So what I'm saying is, sometimes we all have to hit rock bottom, but we don't all have to. We just have to know that our fellow Americans, real Americans, not fake patriots, not fake Christians, not fake businessmen, but real Americans, the same people who defeated Hitler's forces, SS Panzer divisions coming out of the Ardennes forest in the Battle of the Bulge. Same people. We're all together, and we're resilient. And we're going to defeat these guys, one way or another, maybe after I'm dead, but I know we are. So, I guess the parting thought I want to leave on this day of resistance, two thoughts. I'm going to add to this podcast the song that Bruce Springsteen just wrote. He wrote it less than a week ago in Minneapolis. It's called Minneapolis. It's a good song. People like it. I'm going to add it to this podcast. But I also want to tell you that when I was in Hungary and Austria with my oldest grandson, Connor, we went to Mauthausen concentration camp because a Hungarian count who was married to a Montana woman from Butte, he had tried to get Hungary to separate itself from Hitler in their parliament in 1944. Hitler sent 2 divisions into Budapest, went up to his house, Gestapo went up, grabbed him. He was a rich guy. So if you're rich, it's no defense, trust me. So throw in with us, guy. Throw in with us poor guys, right? This was a rich guy, a count. They went up and because he just felt it wasn't the right thing for Hungary to be doing. So they sent 2 divisions in. The Gestapo went to his house. They snatched and grabbed him, just like ICE is doing to our people now. They did the same thing. And they put him in the Mauthausen concentration camp for 1 year. And at the end of that year, he was interviewed by U.S. soldiers with the 11th Armored Division that liberated that camp. They tried to interview as many people as they could. And his testimony was used in the Nuremberg war crime trials about how he listened to the Germans forcibly freeze to death Russian prisoners by pouring ice on them and making them stand all night out in the February cold of Austria. And that was one of the pieces of testimony actually used by attorneys against the German, against the Nazis, not the German, but the Nazis. Well, I went to Mauthausen to see the conditions that he had been in. And one of the things that I learned that I want to leave with you is that there was testimony there at Mauthausen by one of the camp inmates who survived. It was a work camp. A lot of people died, but he survived. And he said, kindness to each other was a form of resistance against the SS. And I want to leave that with you. We need to be kind to each other, the way people have evidently been kind among the community that's in those tents, between the community that's sheltered. Don't let artificial things separate us. And don't forget, I was in the military, don't forget that the first victims of a war are the poor guys that have to go out and shoot somebody. I hated that. I never had to shoot anybody, but I certainly had people try to kill me in my past. And it's to have to be in uniform and follow the orders if they're legal, not if they're illegal. You shouldn't follow an illegal order. But from a clown like the one we have for president, that's the pits. Anyhow, I've talked enough. Helena, Montana, and the Big Sky Country is doing fine. We're waking up. Have a great day. Thanks.